Hi, everyone. Terry Lee Harrison here for BRI Talks, and I'm delighted today to introduce you to Ilene Meckley. Ilene is a seasoned speaker with over 30 years of experience in helping individuals in the business world overcome their fears and strategize for success. Today, she is here to share a deeply personal story about determination. I'm confident that her story will resonate with you and have a profound effect on you or someone you know. Please join me in welcoming Ilene to our virtual BRI Talks stage. Welcome, Ilene.
Thank you, Terry Lee. And I just want to share, before I share a little bit of my story, how Terry Lee and I were talking about how today is a significant day for me. And so she decided that a BRI Talk would be really appropriate. And that is why I am talking today. May 23rd, 2005, I had a very different thing happen in my life that I would have never expected. I was speaking. I went speaking across the country. I did 16 seminars and workshops a month, not a year, but a month. I loved to travel at that time. And then what happened was, after one of my talks, we were going to travel to go to the airport. And I was really tired. I'd been speaking, and I said to the person driving, I'm going to put my feet up on the dashboard, and I'm just going to take a nap before we have to travel. Well, I did that. And unfortunately, I was rudely awakened just for a few seconds when an 18-wheeler truck crossed a highway and hit us head on at 65 miles an hour. My foot literally went through the windshield. The person next to me was unconscious. I don't remember a lot, but I do remember thinking, God, please, I know I'll be okay, but please be sure my family, my parents, my kids, they're okay. That was my immediate thought. My foot was literally falling off, blood was gushing out, and I was unconscious. I don't remember being cut out of the car. I don't remember the airlifting and the helicopter. But I ended up spending 1 month in a trauma center. And then immediately after being in the trauma center, being moved in a really little airplane, big enough for just a co-pilot and a pilot and intensive care nurses and my sister-in-law, who I chose to fly with me, who was a doctor, and this little plane to go to a rehab hospital where I stayed another 4.5 months. So what does a day like this mean today? Well, I'm going to give you a little history. I don't have a lot of memories of the first, of course, few weeks there. But I do remember when I was removed to step-down care that the first apparently reaction I had to anything was when my oldest daughter and my mother were arguing over who could feed me Jell-O the best. And I remember blurting out, I don't even like Jell-O. And they were so happy. But that was the first apparent reaction I had. I also remember that my parents often, I was divorced at the time, and my parents, the night of the accident, got a call that they thought I wouldn't make it. And they got in a car from Annapolis, Maryland, and they drove to Memphis, Tennessee, where my accident was. And they actually moved into a little hotel room for a month while I was in the trauma center. But I also remember very vividly a time when the doctor came in with my parents, and my parents had tears in their eyes, and they were going to be telling me some news they knew I would be upset about. And they said that they might have to amputate my right foot. Well, they were so sad. And I remember my dad looking at me and saying, now, how are you feeling about that? And all I could think of is I better say something because they looked so sad. And I said, I guess I'll just learn how to dance on one foot because I loved to dance and, and go out and hear music and dancing. And they didn't amputate my right foot. But I remember that night saying, okay, God, I promise I will never, ever hear music and not dance, at least for a little bit. And I certainly have a good friend, Cindy, who would say she knows that's the truth, because when we're cruising, no matter what, I will dance for some of that time, because I do feel that I've learned so much. And one of the things I want to talk to you about today is choices. May 23rd, I can choose to look at this and think, oh, what a horrible day. And I did for a few years, I'll admit. But I've transitioned into thinking, what a blessed day. Because I've been able to experience 7 grandchildren, my children, my parents, friends, family, all kinds of activities that I would have never had. I also realized I can choose to be happy in pain or sad in pain, whether it's physical or emotional pain. It's a choice. And during the hospital stay, I had some really interesting experiences that I want to share today. I was in the hospital from May 23rd to the week before Thanksgiving. It's a long time. I was there during holidays like Memorial Day and July 4th, Labor Day, Halloween. A long time missing different occasions. Well, I will admit, I'm not proud of it, but on July 4th, I was in Washington, D.C. at the time at the rehab hospital. I'd moved in that little plane from Memphis, Tennessee to the Washington, D.C. rehab to be closer to my family. And on July 4th, I was on a metro stop. The hospital was close to a metro stop, a subway stop. So a lot of my friends and family, because I had grown up in that area, they came and they would come with their picnic baskets and their blankets. And they came to see me, though. It was a good day for them to come see me. It made sense because if they wanted to visit me, they were going downtown DC anyway. And if anyone knows the traffic area, it's not easy to get around DC. So they would come and they'd leave, and they would come and they would leave. And then I had this young person come in, it was a newer nurse, young nurse. And she looked at me and she said, "Wow, you sure have had a lot of company. How are you feeling?" And I looked at her and said, "Not so great. They all came and they all left. I'm still here." She goes, "I think I know how you feel. May I sit on your bed?" And I'm like, "Sure." She said, "You see, I fell off a horse during the year of my senior year. I was in a hospital and rehab for a long time. The day of prom, all my friends thought it would be good for them to come and see me. They wanted to make me feel included, and they all left." I said, "No, you do not know how I feel right now. I feel like I'm crazy. I have had plenty of July 4ths. I've come and gone to lots of July 4th celebrations. I have so many memories. You won't have a memory of a prom. So I have nothing to feel bad about." So I said to her, "You don't know this yet because you're just in the holidays, but I happen to be a motivational speaker and trainer. So right now I'm trying to figure out how you can experience a prom." I said to her, "I want you to think about calling a church youth group, a high school. I want you to call and find out if there's some girls who have lost their moms. And I want you to be able to experience helping them find the dress, helping them get their nails done, helping them get their hair done." She hugged me and she said, "There's a reason you and I are having this conversation." I believe that. I used to ask the doctors in the middle of the night who were doing some rounds and nurses, I would say, they'd go, "Well, I'm getting off soon." And I'd say, "Oh, do you have any time? Could you sneak me down to the physical therapy room?" And they would laugh. And they'd go, "What do you mean? We can't do that." And I said, "I just want to go to bed knowing I've taken one more step or two more steps." Because every day, you see, I had to learn to walk after 4 months in the bed, broken neck, broken back. I had to learn to walk. And I just wanted to prove to myself that it would get better and better. You see, it was really a traumatic experience. And when I hear people say to me, "Do you have PTSD?" and they would say it over and over to me, I'd always think, "Yeah, I do." And I thought, no, I don't want that anymore. So now my PTSD is most different than anyone else's. My PTSD, when it happens, is perfect time to stay determined. Perfect time to stay determined. And that's what I've learned to do through so many things. You know, there was a time when my parents came in and said, "You're going to stand on your foot that almost went through the windshield. And don't forget, I had a hip replacement, broken back, broken neck, all that. And we're going to be so excited to cheer you on. It's going to happen next week." And I thought, oh God, what am I going to do, God? And I pray, please, please don't make it too painful, or please help me to be able to do it. Well, my parents were very smart parents. And they had actually called my oldest daughter, who lived actually in California at the time. She happens to be a psychologist. And she came in with my 3-year-old grandson to DC when I was going to stand for the first time. I had no idea they were going to be there. And so when we go to the physical therapy room and they reel me in, there they are. I'm so excited to see my grandson. And I think, okay, here it goes. I knew he was watching. And all of a sudden I hear him say, go, Grandma. And I thought, okay. So I pushed myself up and I plopped down immediately. Immediately. And I thought, oh my gosh, here it goes again. I plopped, stood up, plopped down immediately. I did it 3 or 4 times. And then I thought, now what am I going to do? I don't want to use the word I can't. I go around the country teaching people you don't say I can't, because it means I certainly am not trying. So I'm not going to say I can't do this. So I looked and I said, I'm really doing the best I can. The person looked at me and said, the best you can? You did it the first time you stood up. You're the one who decided it wasn't good enough. That wasn't good enough. We just wanted you to stand up once. Because I believed I should be able to stand up and stay there for a while. And it didn't happen. So I would go to the physical therapy room and I'd walk and practice. For some reason, I could do really well backwards first before forwards. I'm not sure why. Maybe it has to do with my CMT that I found out I had. I don't know. But I could walk backwards better. I also learned during that time what it feels like to be a child learning to walk. I'll tell you why. Everyone in the physical therapy room knew me. I was there the longest when I left, that they had had someone there for a long time. They all knew me. They told patients the story. I would go and talk to patients. They would say, would you talk to this patient? They need to know what you've gone through and help them. I would do that. Why do I know what it feels like to learn to walk? When I would walk 3 or 4 extra steps, someone would go, she just walked 3 or 4 extra steps, and everyone would clap and cheer for me. Think about the last time a child was learning to walk. Everyone claps and cheers. Well, those claps and cheers were really good for me. But I have to share with you, sometimes it wasn't good enough. And I'd have to quickly say, you're being too hard on yourself. So when I look at today, May 23rd, and think it's 19 years later, I still live with chronic pain. I have found out I have something new. It's not new to me. I've always had it apparently, but it's come and raised its like surface to the surface. Something called CMT, which some of you may not know what it is, but it doesn't make it easy to walk. And it makes it even harder probably to walk with what I've gone through and the arthritis and the pain I've had. But what have I learned in the 19 years? I've learned that you always have to decide that you can do what you need to do. And I'm just going to close by sharing one quick more story. Some of you probably can see this. It's something I keep on my desk. And someone actually gave this to me after my father passed away, knowing that my father loved this quote and I always use it. So I'm going to close with this because I want you to think about some things that have been challenging for you, painful for you emotionally, physically, and to remember this wonderful quote by St. Francis of Assisi. Start by doing what's necessary, then what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. Thank you all so much for letting me share my story. Every one of you has a story to share. And Terry Lee, I have to tell you, the fact that you have started BRI Talks, the timing of you starting BRI Talks, which stands for bold, real, and impactful, you've given me an opportunity to do what I call cleansing a wound every year. Because I did forget to tell you that the driver who hit me, he chose to drive 4 hours over the legal limit. He fell asleep, woke up disoriented, and hit us at 65 miles an hour. That's not a good choice that he made. Thank you, Terry Lee, and thank you, everybody.